Hello everybody, my name is Eberle. I'm an electrical engineer, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to change the IP address of our SCADA cards. That includes how to define the new IP address, how to interpret the legend of the Winconfig, and how to determine the Ethernet port number of the physical ports. For my demonstration, I use a REGDA that contains one of our standard SCADA cards, a REGPE, and on my laptop I have the software Winconfig. Let's get started. A typical challenge during the commissioning of an ID is to change the IP address of a new device so that it can operate in the given network of the substation. If the new device is not in the same subnet, successful communication is impossible. So I will show you how to change the IP address. Therefore, I open the Winconfig software. I press Transfer Settings to PC. I select the board type. In my case, I use a REGPE. And I press Detect on LAN. As you can see, the background behind the IP addresses is colored red. That indicates that the IP is unreachable. A TCP/IP connection is not possible, but it exists a physical connection between the SCADA card and my laptop. We are aiming now to create a TCP/IP connection over Ethernet, and that would be indicated by the color green. The SCADA card has different states, as you can see here in the legend. Green means that a HTTPS transfer is possible. This is the state that you want to have for a normal operation. Pink means that the password has to be changed. We explained this already in another video. Purple means that the HTTPS transfer is blocked. That could indicate that your laptop has too many IP addresses assigned to the Ethernet port. Red means that the SCADA card can be found in the network via UDP, but that the SCADA card and the laptop are in two different subnets. And then there is orange. This means that the card is faulty or not operational. When you see this color, a factory reset is the only way to regain access to the card. The IP addresses of the SCADA card are highlighted in red, as my laptop has the IP address 10.168.10.10 and the SCADA card has the default IP address. My aim now is to have the IP address 10.168.10.6 for the SCADA card so that it can communicate in the network. To change the IP address of the SCADA card, I take an intermediate step and change the IP address of my laptop first. That is the only way to send setting files and to change the IP address of the card. I change the IP address of my laptop to 172.16.104.10, and now the color behind the IP addresses is green. I am now able to change the settings. First, I download the current file from the SCADA card. Therefore, I select the SCADA card and type in the default password, teledata. And I just press Remote Transfer to PC. After the download, I can adjust the settings here in the software. Therefore, I press Advanced, Network Settings, and here I can define a new IP address. I will define a new IP address. I also could define a new IP address for the second Ethernet port, but for the moment I will leave it like that. At the end of the page, I can press Confirm. And now the new IP address is part of the setting file here in the Winconfig software. I only need to send the setting file to the SCADA card so that the SCADA card can copy the new IP address. Therefore, I press Transfer Settings from PC and Detect on LAN. After I found the SCADA card in the network, I can select the SCADA card and type in the default password, teledata. And then I press simply transfer from PC to device. The card has copied the setting file with the new IP addresses. If I detect the card in the network, I find the card and the color behind the IP addresses is red because my laptop is in another subnet. But as you can see, the IP address has changed. In the end, I changed the IP address of the laptop so that a TCP IP connection is possible and the color behind the IP addresses is green again. In this example, I only changed the IP address of the first Ethernet port. But which of the 2 or 4 physical ports is the Ethernet port number 1? Let me give you an overview which physical port is the first Ethernet port. Eberle sells different SCADA cards, and every SCADA card is a little bit different. Let's start with the REGPE card. This card has only one Ethernet port, so the question is trivial. This port is Ethernet port number 1. This is also true when this card is installed in a REGDA. The REGPE card has already 2 ports. The variant is for a 19-inch rack and the lower port is the first port. The upper port is the second port. The REGPE DSV has the ports on the back side and it can have 2 or 4 ports. Ethernet port 1 is always the lowest port on the back side. Therefore, it doesn't matter if the card has 2 or 4 ports. The lowest port is always port 1. Here we have a REGDA with a REGPE card. It exists a left port and a right port. And the first port is always the right port. The left port is the second port. That's it for today's video. I hope my instructions served you well. You learned how to interpret the legend of the Winconfig, how to change the IP address, and how to count the physical Ethernet ports. For further questions, please have a look on our other videos or contact our support department. See you next time at Eberle Academy.